good?
I won't know. It's
Does it
totally
show on
dependent
there?
on the audience.
Got a fancy dancing microphone? What did you do? Steal that from work?
No, I wish. I bought it back when I was doing Discover Spring Valley, and I used it forever, but it seemed like it would be handy tonight.
Yeah.
Just in case the other council members want to listen to what was said.
Hi, Pam. Can you hear us? Should be working. Justin, can you try saying something?
Yeah, good evening.
How do we sound, Todd?
I can't hear anything. So.
Check 1, 2.
You guys always sound so good. So, but the people watching already said that they can hear you just fine. So. Hello, Terry. Hello, everybody. So, hey, this is what Act Local, Think Local.
Look at this. I don't think
It's all
it's
about.
safe. When she
It's
sent
all
me the
about
pictures, and her mom had that.
getting out,
the fire alarm half,
getting
just half
involved. I
cleaned
want
off.
to give props out to
Not as good as it is now, even. I'm like, no, get a hold of the fire alarm.
the town
And
hall. I
another pass
can't,
inspection.
Justin, can you think of any time when there's been a town hall like this?
I was told by Deb that this is the first one she's ever seen, and she's been in the office at the City Hall for 25, 30 years.
Well, she was there, and she was there for a while in '98 when I started.
Yeah.
So,
So this is the first time that I can ever remember a town hall in Spring Valley outside of city council meetings. So this is really what this is all about. When I talk about think local, act local, inspiration here for you guys is even if you're not in Spring
Until we
Valley,
walked in there with her, and
even
then we
if you're
started looking
not
around.
part of our town.
it can't be
Oh, hey, thank you, man. Thank you so much.
If that was me, I would feel good about it. There's no way.
I'd go back on them for a refund. I mean, you wouldn't do that to your own home.
No.
Leave it that bad.
The important thing about this is that you guys will be able to bring your town council, city council, county board, county commission.
I can see why she's upset. I mean,
to
that's the whole situation.
break away from the normal monthly meetings and actually do like Justin and John are doing tonight, is actually having a town hall. And it's a town hall that's really important in regards to how we conduct self-governance. I know that Justin's message that he put out was, we're going to have this town hall, we're going to talk about city ordinances. What's important to you as far as city ordinance? What do you think needs to,
Other council members to do other ones of these, then you and I will just do them.
I asked Chris about the next one.
That's really
I
kind
have an idea, and she said she was up for it.
for lack of a better term.
But, I mean, doing it quarterly, I hope to have each council member.
It's very encouraging.
If you ever get one that says no,
There's a
let me
crowd here. I'm not
know.
gonna shake
Yeah, thank you.
Not everybody's going to believe it. But so far we've got 20 plus people here, so which is more than I was expecting. This is already better attended than a city council meeting. So
Ouch.
Justin says, "Ouch!" If you guys didn't hear it, I mean, but it's true. It's true. The nice thing would be if this turns into getting more people involved and, even getting to the point where maybe, you got to do city council meetings to a bigger venue. Not because people should be
Wouldn't that be
coming out
nice
to
if we
city
had
council
enough people show up for a council meeting? We had a
raising
meeting.
Cain,
I would love to do
sometimes
that.
it's necessary. But
That's
to
what
really be
frustrates me
able to
about the
get
ordinance
people
is
to
know
get involved and be involved and stay involved in a situation where they're showing up and paying attention.
Yeah, nobody ever says anything
And
different.
that's how accountability really works with city governance, with county governance, state governance, is actually paying attention. I think far too many people think that paying attention is paying, seeing who's running for office in an election year, finding out what, if it's somebody I know personally, somebody I like, if it's somebody that's got an R behind their name or a D behind their name or some other initial behind their name, which when you're talking about city and county politics, they're supposed to be nonpartisan. We all know better. We know that elections are always partisan. There's always some sort of partisan. Everybody comes at every position they run for from a partisan perspective. But city councils, county commissions, things like that, they're very open to people taking action, taking note of what's going on, because these things directly impact on a personal level on a daily basis. The vast majority of people, the closest they get to having interaction with, state laws, state codes, state statutes, is whether or not they're speeding on their way to and from work. Whether or not they're
Char likes to sit in the front so she can give us the evil eye.
That's the closest that you get.
Good evening. We're not going to get started quite yet in about 2 minutes, but if you have not signed in, please do so. That does not mean you're going to say anything. We just want to remember who is here. We want to, my memory is not well enough to remember all of you being here. And so that also allows us to, track the number of people that were here. So we can say we had X number. It was a great turnout. So please do put your name down, whether or not you plan on speaking tonight. Thank you.
Did you sign your name?
Yes, sir. Did Justin put his name on there is what I want.
I want to wait to see who.
We're not going to let you talk, Justin.
I don't.
Putting it all on John.
We'll go over that in a minute.
Those teacher things never leave you, do they?
You know what's even worse than that?
All right, there we go.
25 years later.
Justin, say hi to the audience.
Hello, welcome.
Say hi.
Hi.
Justin. John.
Hello.
Yeah, maybe this is conversation's not pertinent to you personally where you're at, but it's definitely something you guys should pay attention to. So I'm going to let them get ready to get
Twice as many as I
started.
expected.
Literally, the audience is saying hi, Justin, and hi, John back. So. Yeah, and in my audience, the people here were literally bigger than the last 4 city council meetings.
Probably all last years.
And somebody sent me a $2 super check.
You're going to pay taxes on that, right?
I do, actually.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. We'll go ahead and get started. I just want to go over a few guidelines just to make this as productive as we can tonight.
You're going to need to make sure you have their attention.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I'll speak as loud as I can without being too...
Obnoxious.
Yeah. Thank you.
Always there to help.
Thank you for coming out tonight. I appreciate you showing up. It's a great turnout, twice as many as I expected. So I appreciate you coming out. It shows your dedication to our community and your willingness to see it improve. So thank you again. I'm also glad that John Doles agreed to take on this town hall with me. I appreciate him taking the time out of his busy day to do this. I do plan on doing this quarterly, and so If we can't get through everything tonight, we will revisit this topic again. We are only going to hold this meeting for 1 hour. At 8 o'clock, we're going to cut it off. We're going to call it done. So if you still have things you need to talk about, you can contact me directly, email, or in person. I'm happy to talk with you anytime. Or like I said, we can set up a second one if needed. There is no time limit. I'm not going to stop people from speaking. Say what you need to say. You're open to say whatever it is you need to say. I want to hear your opinion. We want to know what you're thinking. We want to know how you want to improve our community. I do ask that if you're able, please come to the podium. We are going to be recording the audio so that the other council members, if they wish, can listen to it. We specifically did not have the entire council here because we are not making decisions tonight. We are not making promises. We're just getting your feedback and your opinion. Let's see what else. And you know, opinions can vary. The person sitting next to you may have a different opinion. I do ask that if you want to speak, you come up to the podium. All the conversations that could happen in the background are distracting. So please, the only person speaking is the one at the mic, at the podium. Let's see what else. Oh, yeah. Please refrain from speaking about a specific individual, your neighbor, the guy down the street, the dog across the street. We need to make sure that these ordinances, if changed, are a benefit to the entire community, not you specifically. So it would be a value not to speak about any individual person. And I do want to mention that we want to make sure that any changes are constitutional. Are they infringing on your rights, the rights of the community? Are they improving their lives, or are they restricting them more than we should? I think that's all I have. John, anything you want to add to that?
I want to thank Justin for deciding to hold this town hall. Like Todd and Justin and I were talking about before we started, this is the first time anybody can remember that in Spring Valley we've done a town hall meeting to get public's input on issues and be able to present it to the council. So we really do appreciate you coming out and voicing your opinions to us tonight. As Justin mentioned, this is the sounding board. The two of us are just here to listen to your ideas and your concerns. Don't be offended if we're not looking at you the whole time. We're going to be diligently taking notes so that when we go back to the council, we can adequately represent you to the council. As he said, no decisions will be made tonight. The two of us are not going to comment on anything you bring to us. We're just here to listen to your concerns, take the notes, and then we'll take it back to a special council work session or a council meeting and discuss it as a whole council and go from there on if any decisions are made. And again, thank you all for coming.
Just to add to that, we may ask follow-up questions to better understand you, but we're certainly not going to comment or make promises. Is there anyone that would like to kick it off? Come on up.
Kick it off.
Oh, you can line up too. You don't have to wait for the person to sit down. Form the line all the way to the back.
I got the reach advantage, sure.
Yeah, you do.
I got your number.
Thanks. I want to thank you for doing this because I think it is needed in our community. I like the transparency that you are bringing forward. I also would like to thank you for printing or sending out the agendas for the council meetings. That's very helpful, I think, to the citizens too. One thing that I would like to see improved in our community is the condition of some of the sidewalks, because some of them are in horrible shape and have been for many, many, many years. It's difficult for those with mobility issues to navigate and to navigate safely. So that's something that I would like to see addressed. I know there are probably ordinances in place regarding that, but just to have the enforcement there and to get the sidewalks up to standards. Thank you.
Thank you.
I gotta lift this up on the
Oh, you just,
I just broke it. Okay, don't touch the microphone,
you
anyone.
should be able to.
Don't pick on the short people.
Hello, okay. Greg Mallarton, 301 East Fremont Street. Like Char said, thank you for the transparency. I know John's right behind it on that, and the rest of the council is. Going with that, the comment I have about the ordinances is that they should be posted online. They should be accessible. The only place I know of that we can go to refer to the ordinances is at the Spring Valley Library. And I know a lot of people's schedules doesn't link up with that. So getting them posted online would go a long way. And then maybe after everyone's had a chance to actually refer to them, revisiting this topic. So thank you all for holding this, and this is a great thing.
Thank you.
Don't be shy. Who's next?
Yeah, come on up.
Don't make me fill time. We'll be here until 9.
We're not gonna allow you to speak until 7:55. Anyone else?
Come on, Doc. You always got something to say.
Not really on this one, no, sorry. Sorry.
I like the electronic sign for messages and things like this, but I wish that they would get rid of the yellow or don't use the yellow color because it's very hard to read with the white printing on it. If it's in red or blue, and even one of the lighter greens is difficult to read.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing for the city. I would just like to say, please enforce these ordinances. I've dealt with this one that is never enforced, and I am tired, and it's just not my area, but it's all over town of the junk. I've had people in other towns ask me, what's happening to Spring Valley? It's junk. I've told them when they inspect, I don't care, go in my backyard, whatever. But drive by and that's it. Nothing's done and the junk never disappears. So I'd just like to have something done with the junk. And maybe inspection before the cleanup day so they have time to do that.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask you to consider getting a snow fence ordinance. We've been dealing with a gentleman that has had a snow fence up for 6 years. We've come to the city council before and asked him to have him take it down. And he's a difficult person to work with, or even the police don't like to work with him. And we know it can be a pain because you do have to get a warrant if he doesn't abide by the ordinance. We think it falls under the fence ordinance. It's in his front yard. It's an eyesore.
Does he leave it up year round?
Yes, he does. It's been up for 6 years. He also parks a pickup on his front lawn because he doesn't want to park it in his driveway or have room in his garage for it. It's also the same thing. It's been there for the same amount of time almost because he used to park it on the street and he would get ticketed because he didn't move it, nor did he have it licensed. He had it licensed as a collector. And then he found out he can't do that because you have to have it out of sight and everything. So he had to put regular plates on it. And so now he just parks that in his lawn as well. So if we could have that removed, because he never uses it. It just sits there. Doesn't ever move it. So if not, maybe have an ordinance that you can't park it so close. I mean, it's right on the property line pretty much. It just sits there in the front yard, never uses it, so. But a snow fence ordinance, unless it falls under the fence ordinance, then I'm with that other lady that let's enforce our ordinances. That's why we have them. If we could do that, and maybe if we start enforcing them, people will realize that's what they're there for and they'll start following themselves. If we could start doing that, that would be great.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Shy bunch of people.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Yeah, come on up.
I'm Ken Derby, my wife Mary Ellen. We moved into this beautiful city of Spring Valley a little over 12 years ago, and we really enjoy living here, except for one niggly little thing, and that's the feral cats. We live on Warren Avenue, and we have an issue where adjacent residence has felines in the home, and typical of cats, they tend to migrate towards other cats, and they mark their territories with spray and by rubbing their cheeks on wherever they want to mark their territory. Now we have a small motorhome sitting in our backyard, chrome wheel covers. We've had a cat get up on our hood of the Class C motorhome and spray the windshield, and it runs down into the air intake for the air conditioner and the heater. We've had them on our front step, spraying on our glass door. They spray on our love seat we've got sitting on the porch. They use my garden as a litter box. And I know there is somewhat of an animal control ordinance here, but it doesn't appear to be enforceable. As I understand, there is no particular person that is known as a animal control officer. So we need to, as a community, figure out how we're going to control these feral cats. I've noticed them pretty much all over town as I've driven around. None of them have tags or collars. I don't know if they're vaccinated or chipped. So some of the other communities in southeastern Minnesota have addressed the issue. Spring Grove has. I don't know all the particulars, but they're in the process of trying to eliminate the feral cats. Other than that, we enjoy our neighborhood and city of Spring Valley. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I gotta talk again.
Round two.
So I stand mostly corrected. A lot of the ordinances are on the city site. From my reading of the ones down at the library, there are some that are missing, so just make sure that that's just updated. But we're taking a step in the right direction as of a couple months, because I don't remember them being up there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Gerald Wolf, 212 West Franklin Street. Thank you for this open meeting. Appreciate you listening to us. So I want to talk to you about an ordinance, actually making an ordinance. So about a month ago, I talked to a few of the city council about the cannabis and where we're at in the state and where we're at for the county. The county has been working on an ordinance. They've got two ordinances. One's for public, using cannabis in the public space, and the other one is for licensing cannabis stores. When I talked to the council people, at that time, they said that, well, that'll never happen in Spring Valley. I mean, as far as licensing a retail store. And less than 10 days later, it came out that we do have somebody looking at licensing for Spring Valley. So one of the things that I want to encourage you is to take more interest in it than what it appears that the council and the mayor is taking in it. And do some research. There's all kind of research out there. Colorado has had legalized marijuana and cannabis for over 10 years now. And there's all kinds of statistics out there as to how that affects our communities. And what I would encourage you to do is adopt an ordinance that is similar to the ordinance that I believe it was in 2017, if I read it right, the city adopted an ordinance in order to control or discourage adult dancing, strip bars, basically. And it seems to be effective. There are certain things that you can do and can't do legally, but take a look at that ordinance and see how the council and how it's worded. That we're doing this for our community and to make our community a community that is that people want to live in and want to move in. When you look at the statistics, as I'm recommending that you do, you'll see that with the normalization and the acceptance and the growth and the increase of use in drugs, whether you want to call them legal or not, the marijuana that is being produced today, this isn't your grandpa's pot. It's very potent, and it has a negative effect on the communities. And so I'd like to see us be a community that is looks after the welfare of the young people. How many people would move into a community because they would say, oh, they've got more pot stores in their town than all of the other towns in the county. Let's move there because that's a nicer community, and versus a community that says, well, this community doesn't have any pot stores. Let's move into that community. What are people gonna, how are people that are looking for a place to live going to react to that? But there's no question that a normalization and an increased use of drugs, no matter what they are, has a negative effect on people and on communities. So I challenge you to do that. One of the things that you had in your newsletter that you sent out, it says, every effort we make strengthens the fabric of our community. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to strengthen the fabric of our community, make us a strong community, and one with people that are, able to, like I said, look at the statistics. The more drug use, the harder it is for people to get up and work in the morning. You got more family problems and so on. So you've been given you've been given the opportunity and the duty to watch after our community. You're our leaders. And I ask you to dust off your Old Testament and read what happens to communities and countries, whatever, communities that allow permissive activities and that sort of thing. And so look after our community, be a good leader, and do what's right to strengthen us. Thank you.
Real quick, from your perspective, what additions to that ordinance would you like to see?
I don't have all of the details on there, but I think it's something that takes some thought. And, there are some there are some things that you can put in an ordinance. Take a look at the one that they did for strip bars. It basically was the same thing where they legalized them, but then the community put handcuffs on it in order to make it, not quite so attractive in order to open up an establishment like that.
Thank you.
My comments are just kind of a nice idea as a walker. I have noticed when walking on some of our longer stretches of path, so maybe out by the wastewater treatment center, some elderly people sometimes trying to find a post to lean against or sit on the utility thing that's farther out there by the tree dump. Maybe we could put a couple benches right on by the end of the utility driveway, but then also the next corner that's by the tree, going to the tree dump. I think that would just be nice, not just for the elderly, but sometimes if you're walking with a very young person too, just to get them to go along. If there was a bench to sit on somewhere, you might have better luck. So.
Thank you.
I'm one of those older people, I agree.
Round three.
I'm back. So I did 2 tours in Iraq. As a soldier, I signed up to uphold the Constitution. Part of that is freedom of religion and freedom from religion. Do not dust off any book that was written millions of years or thousands of years ago to guide your politics. Use it personally, please do. That said, I'm all for marijuana. Bring it in, okay? Tax it, make some money off of it. Make some outdoor smoking ordinances, but don't outright ban it. That's not progress. Look into legalizing marijuana. Will keep them in a legal space to go and indulge in what they want to indulge in. It'll keep them off of harder stuff by not making them go to these illegal places and illegal avenues to go about and procure what they want. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, Lynette Raymaker. I'm wondering about dog ordinances in town. First of all, how many dogs any one household can have? At one time I had heard it was like 3. I don't know if that is so or not. Also, dogs at large, as to how many times you have to call authorities to have it taken care of, and how many times you have to do that before a citation is given. I know in other towns, I read it in the paper all the time, be it Preston, Leroy, wherever. Dogs at large, a citation is given, a fine is put out there. So, because there is definitely a problem with that in Spring Valley. Thank you.
Thank you.
Somebody come up here, because I'll fill up the rest of the time. I'm not even afraid.
I am.
Hi, Sandy Selner, and we live at 815 North Broadway, 63, and Highway 16. I do believe there are signs coming into each avenue of town as far as the noise ordinance, that can we please try and do something jake breaking in the middle of the night? Because honestly, well, we live right, and I'm kind of including Pam and Dave on this, Phillips. You can have your 40 miles an hour, however, semis coming into town, they don't start braking till about our houses, Bluff Brothers, before they'll jake brake down. I'm probably not saying the right thing, but down to that 40 miles an hour. And we've got, I appreciate the speed signs by the school, but why can't we have them out on each entrance into town?
Are you talking about the digital ones that show the
Yes,
speed? Okay, thank you.
yes. And even if, I know it's hard to enforce, but,
They come flying into town at 50 miles an hour.
oh, yeah.
Or more.
Yeah, so I don't know what the answer is, but I think it really needs to be addressed.
Thank you.
The police don't even say.
Opened up a can of worms with that one she did. Everybody came alive.
Do they still have a jake braking sign outside of town?
No.
It's still there? I don't think it's there anymore. Because they always said there's no jake braking.
It's, I think it says noise ordinance. Just that.
But I know there was a sign.
You're right, they did.
They did, but it's not there anymore.
So we can't use the term jake braking. But we all know that that's what it is, yes. So, yeah.
No loud braking.
A lot of cities have no engine braking.
Engine braking, right?
The other
So-
problem is all these trucks now run open exhaust, they don't have mufflers on them. And the jake brake is just that much louder. And I know the city of Spring Valley doesn't have its own municipal police force, but somehow these regulations aren't being enforced. We hear them clear up to our house.
All the way to the stop sign, before we stop.
Just before they hit the stop sign down here, they flip them on. I drove truck for 10 years, so I know what they are. They're noisy, but they're practical.
All right, would anyone else like to come up?
Justin's begging you guys, don't let him up there.
Tom Mosher. I live outside of Spring Valley, but I'm a landlord here in Spring Valley, got several houses. And I appreciate you guys being here, giving everybody a chance to speak their piece. It seems like tonight you've heard a lot about ordinances not being enforced. I was in law enforcement for 25 years. I was known to be the enforcer on ordinances. In fact, I worked a lot of my time in the city of Spring Valley. And I enforced them on everybody. City council, mayor, didn't matter. You need to enforce your ordinance or this is what you're gonna hear. It doesn't do any good to have ordinances and not enforce them. And I know they take a lot of time and they take money, and that's the big thing why they're not enforced. A city, a lot of times, is not gonna take anybody to court. They're just gonna walk away from it. And that's what I have heard with, in my case, in the rental inspections. I've heard it from 2 city employees that say we will not enforce it because we can't take them to court because we don't have the money. So my opinion is if you're gonna, you can't just have a bunch of ordinances and collect fees. You gotta enforce them, or this is kind of what you're hearing tonight. So that's what I'm hoping you guys are getting out of it too. Whatever in ordinances you gotta have, they gotta be enforced, and they gotta be enforced on everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Foster, UME. I want to expound a little bit on what Tom said about enforcing ordinances. I've been involved in planning and zoning and city stuff. What you need to look at is, I know it costs money, and that's why we don't enforce a lot of these junk ordinances and all that. City council, you need to start budgeting money every year, so you have money set aside, so you can do that. Because that's the only way it's going to get done, is if you have the funds available so you can follow through instead of just giving up at the end.
Thank you.
Can you turn around and charge the homeowner for some of those fees to enforce those? You can't?
Well, well.
What time?
Huh?
Not time for you yet. 7:31.
Not to cost me.
Anybody else want to speak before Todd?
Come on, somebody please talk.
There's a tax rebate if you speak long enough.
He's got a sheet of paper. I'm nervous. It's full of something he wants to say.
No, it just, everybody's bringing up good ideas of stuff that I was already thinking about, and I'm like, well, I don't want to say double or too much.
Got a thought on that Jake brake situation. Has the state highway patrols ever set up any decibel meters to measure the loudness level?
They can't enforce it.
And they can't enforce it either.
They can't enforce it.
But being that it's a state highway, if the county deputy that works here in town could contact them and say, just sit off the side of the street after dark and see how many of these trucks are going through using open exhaust and their engine braking.
You mean like commercial enforcement?
Yeah.
Yeah, commercial enforcement's different. But they can't enforce.
Well, any highway patrolman can enforce
can't.
the noise
Right.
ordinance.
Yeah.
But as far as
Stop. They're
inspections,
gonna get points against their record, so if they get somebody points and then, when
Yeah.
they do laws that have been improved in the last 10 years.
I don't know
Basically,
about
the DOT
enforcing
guys
city
don't want
ordinances
that
though.
thing about truck.
They're not empowered to enforce city ordinances that I'm aware of. So county deputies are because they are contracted through the city to enforce city ordinances on behalf of the city, but contracted through the city, which pays the county for their
DOT guy
coverage.
to really crack down on a truck driver.
You would need DOT commercial for some of the stuff they can do, but like inspections and things like that, they cannot do.
well, being that it's a state highway, I would think they'd have jurisdiction. I know they do on the open
What
road.
they do on speed and moving violations, they can't enforce city ordinances just because it's on a state highway in town.
All right. Anybody else? All right, Todd.
All right, come on up. Guys, have a good night.
If somebody does want to speak.
Yeah, cut me off. Dave's good at it. He's been.
No, in all seriousness, if he takes up the next 25 minutes, if you have something to say, raise your hand and we'll have a pause.
Just throw something at me. I'm not going to take up 20. I don't think I'm going to take up 25.
And I don't want to be rude, but I am cutting you off at 8.
I'm not. I'm going to bed at 8:02.
Okay,
So
okay, good.
because I get up earlier than you. I actually wanted to start off with when we were talking before. I do want to commend you for this. My entire time living in town, this has never happened, ever. And even though there's varying opinions here, we saw a little bit already. Even though there's some varying opinions here, this is what breeds a healthy community, right? I'm a big, Justin, you know this, John, you've heard a little bit from me. I'm a big advocate for think local, act local. Everything that matters happens here. I'm not saying I don't care what happens at the county level or at the state level or at the federal level, but what really matters is what happens here. It's the decisions that we make, right? It's what we say that matters. And then it's how you respond to that matters to your reelection and to your funding. And so this, for the first time in 30 years that I can remember, is a huge step into what you were talking about, which is honoring the rights and the duty, or having the duty to honor the rights and the liberties of the people that live here. And we've already heard that tonight with some of the, hey, can we address this? Now, interest of full disclosure, I am a right-leaning libertarian. So I'm not Democrat or Republican. I'm not even affiliated with a party, but I have very classical John Locke views, Rutherfordian views. I believe that governance happens the most locally, and the most local way that happens is in your own home and on your own property. And that's why a meeting like this about ordinances is so important. Is so vitally important. And one of the things that I want to bring up is the mowing ordinance. Because we're seeing a trend throughout all of the country, but especially in rural Minnesota, in smaller towns, more agrarian towns, you're actually starting to see more and more people who aren't all, bunny loving, tree hugging, granola eating, patchouli bathing individuals who would have been putting flowers in the barrels of rifles of people coming home from Vietnam, are now embracing a lot more natural and holistic yards. It's a big move. In fact, Minnesota as a state told cities, if somebody wants to do natural prairie grasses or natural flowers or whatnot as their yard, you can't enforce a mowing ordinance on them. And so last year in May, the big question came up of, what do we do about no mow May? Anybody take part in no mow May? Because we're all old. But a lot of people are starting to take part in no mow May because they appreciate what it does for natural wildlife, the native wildlife. But others like me, I'm going to be transitioning my yard to a prairie yard. I like it. Two, it's cheaper than fertilizer. But I'd like to see an ordinance that comes in or a change to the ordinance that says we're not going to look at enforcing an ordinance on mowing your yard if you're actually making an effort. I don't know, it's up to you guys to word it. You're the brains. If you're making an effort to actually go to something like a natural prairie yard, like you just don't want to water your thistles and it takes over. That's a different. But who am I to judge? So I'd really like to see something like that come in place, or at least let people decide if they want to ruin their yards, right? If you want to take part in no mow May, we're not going to send somebody out with I might be known for my sarcasm, with a yardstick or a measuring tape to measure places around town that may or may not be mowing their yards that belong to the taxpayers. But it's a very important thing for us to be taking a look at, because that yard belongs to that person, and most of them will immediately, once that yard gets unmanageable, will mow it to manage it. And I think an ordinance change there would be good. One place I'd like to say that I'd like to see some more enforcement, because I think it would be better for everyone, and this is really weird coming from me, Justin's going to fall out of his seat when I say this, the parking ordinance during the winter, during snow events. Getting a ticket for parking on the street when it's 45 degrees and there's snow, but because it's December, is asinine. That's ridiculous. Common sense says we don't have to worry about it. If you're parking on the street and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and there's 14 inches of snow and you haven't gone the extra step of getting that permit, yes, get a ticket. Why? Because most of us live here in town, also work outside of town, and we need those streets cleaned. And I think that would actually help encourage the street department to be able to go, yeah, we can go hit those streets at any time during the day, instead of having to wait until a very particular time or after the event is over. Because for some of us, I drive a little car now, I get 2 inches of snow and I have to go out and shovel for 4 minutes just to get 4 feet sometimes. So I think that enforcing that's my gimme. Enforce that as far as snow parking. I would, when it comes to cannabis, I'm laissez-faire. I don't think we need an ordinance. And if you're going to pass an ordinance on cannabis, then you need to pass an ordinance about drinking. If you don't want a place in town to sell cannabis, then there should be no selling of alcohol either. Alcohol proportionally is far more dangerous than cannabis. And contrary to popular belief, cannabis is not the gateway drug, alcohol is. We have a far bigger problem with alcoholism and alcohol abuse and DUIs related to alcohol in Fillmore County and in Spring Valley in particular than we do any other use of any kind of drug. And then it's prescription drugs like fentanyl. Prescription fentanyl, things like that, are far more dangerous. Far more dangerous. Getting rid of cannabis in town is going to be next to impossible anyway. The state statute makes it very clear that I can grow 4 plants in my house right now and share it with friends. Nobody can stop me. And trying to pass an ordinance that would ban that in town would be a bad move. Not because I don't think the state should have the authority to do that anyway, but you would spend all of your time trying to track those people down. You would not be enforcing or penalizing anybody who's violating another code or ordinance here in town. I'd like to see the city of Spring Valley take a strong stand on the Second Amendment. We see this everywhere else. We see sanctuary cities for illegals. We see sanctuary cities for this. Minnesota is a sanctuary city for gender ideology, or a sanctuary state for gender ideology. To each his own. Spring Valley is a relatively traditional small town, making it a town that's friendly to people walking around, and not having to worry about getting stopped and checked for a permit as to whether or not you can even have a firearm. That's in keeping with what Justin said, which is a constitutional right of every person to keep and bear arms for a multitude of reasons. That would be the most liberating thing you have ever experienced in your life. You go to a place like Texas or Montana, down there, they almost look at you funny if you're not carrying a gun. And it's Texas, they just look at everybody funny. And the other one that I'd like to have the city take a look at, and this won't come as a surprise to the city council members, is I'd like to, at the very least, see some modifications to the chicken ordinance. People, we've heard tonight, dogs, stray dogs, right? Dogs at large. And of course, everybody knows about feral cats. No offense to the cat people. Cats are the most invasive, dangerous species that we have brought to North America. They slaughter native bird populations like nobody's business. Their entire migratory patterns have been shifted by cats. I don't know that the city of Spring Valley has the power to do anything about it. Cats don't care. It's kind of like town hall meetings, herding cats. It's really hard. But props to you guys for, being willing to do it and hear these things. But I would really, there again, I'm trying not to make it too personal. The idea that I don't have to get permission from my neighbor to have a dog. I don't have to get permission from my neighbor to have a bird or a cat. I don't even have to have permission from my neighbor to get a rabbit. And I can have all the rabbits I want for the most part. But the chicken ordinance in Spring Valley says I have to go to all the people who have adjacent property to me before I can even apply for a permit. And what's a permit? Permits means what? Permission. I have to get permission from my neighbors to have chickens. And then I have to pay the application fee. And then the city can approve whether or not I can have those chickens. Now, I can compromise on some level. But the idea that I have to get permission from my neighbor for that, but nothing else that I do, where do you draw the line? And that I really think it would go a lot further for someone like me to be willing to maybe compromise on jumping through those hoops. But the minute you tell me I have to go to my neighbor first before you tell me yes or no, that's a roadblock too many for me. So that's it. So I guess can have the mic back.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? I'm sorry.
I just want to point out the irony of the fact we're talking about ordinance enforcement and someone lit up their back tires and the officer lit up his sirens and pulled them over. Just, I don't know if you guys heard that.
Yeah, good timing.
Justin's texting the on-duty deputy, please pull somebody else.
Don't even pull them over, just start
I'm
the
getting
siren.
so much heat in here right now.
All right, anyone else? We can end early if there's nobody else that would like to make a comment. Oh, yeah, come on up.
I guess one comment on looking at ordinances and how you write them and what you do, being I've been involved on that, is, yeah, I agree with Todd to some extent that it's your property, you have the right to do what you want. But you also have the responsibility of what you do on your property that affects the neighbor's property next to you and how they live on their property. So you have to have ordinances in place to control that. Otherwise, you're gonna get a neighbor over here that just doesn't give a rip about what they're doing in the neighborhood and affecting these people. So that's why you need ordinances to control things like chickens and things like that. So, and lawn mowing.
And weeds.
And dandelions.
I would just like to thank you for the meeting and say that Spring Valley has many, many ordinances on the books. I'm an ex-councilman from 30 years ago.
Yeah, I'll stop you right there just for a moment. Since you were a previous council member, do you ever remember a town hall taking place?
We had
We
very
did, Justin.
open meetings and had crowds like this every Monday night.
For council meetings or just?
For council
just
meetings.
okay.
And anybody could speak their mind all night long.
Okay.
We had 4-hour meetings sometimes.
Wow.
But,
Sorry to interrupt you.
We gotta tell Deb to get some more comfortable chairs.
Couches and lazy boys.
Lack of enforcement is the biggest problem I see. And comment on your snow comment on the December 75, 45 degree weather, that's the time to do it and train them. Tonight, when there's a foot of snow on the ground, is not time to monkey around giving them a ticket. Get them out of the way so we can plow the streets. If they're not trained, they will still be there. But lack of enforcement is the biggest problem I see for the town.
Thank you. I'll make this quick. I believe in personal responsibility for everybody's property. And yes, I need to keep that in mind when I'm dealing with my neighbors. I absolutely 100% agree with that. Here's the problem with ordinances. It's not criminal. And that's not a problem. I'm actually for that. It's ultimately civil on most ordinances. Anything that rises to a criminal level falls in, basically, outside of traffic tickets in town, really falls on, ultimately, it comes down to the county. What most people do not understand about enforcing ordinances, mowing, snow removal, things like that, is that it ultimately opens the door to the city taking your property from you. That's how ordinances are enforced. You don't mow your yard one time, they can charge you for that. One time, they can charge you for that. And if you don't pay it, they can assess that to you. And if you don't pay that assessment, they can literally evict you from your own home down the road. Are you comfortable with that?
Well, you're responsible to take care of it.
But are you comfortable with your neighbor losing their property over not mowing the yard the way you want it mowed? They do. Minnesota is one of the worst states for enforcing that across the board. In fact, we've had lawsuits recently where Minnesota has actually started to lose because they're not handling it in a way that's decent. It's being directed at particular people while others are getting away with it. So I could point to a neighbor across the street who owns a property that used to be public school. Rarely mowed. I don't like it, but do I want them to lose that property? And I do believe that everybody has a right to have their property values secure. Absolutely agree with that. But also remember that property value has no determination on whether or not your house is sellable. Property value is arbitrarily determined by a tax assessor with very little to no training. and they walk by your house to determine how much your property is worth, not based on whether or not you're going to make that amount of money when you sell that property, but they're going to determine that your property is worth X number of dollars so that the city and the county and the school district can determine how much tax you pay to fund their projects. That's what property value does. That's all it's for. Before property taxes were in place, people still took care of their property. So, yes, take care of your property. I do. I do take care of my property. Okay, I can't attest that my neighbors take it. Josh?
Yeah.
I know I'm a bad neighbor, so don't say anything.
Justin only has a few minutes left anyway, so I want to keep it.
Being a good neighbor, there's a lot of stuff involved with that. One of it's watching out for your neighbors and giving a damn about them on a lot of levels. And the number one way to fix a lot of that, even with difficult neighbors, is sometimes to say, hey, can I buy you a beer? Can I get you a coffee? Can we talk about our differences? And then they say no, and then you take other courses of action. That's all I'm asking. My yard, whether I have wildflowers or dandelions, is not going to affect how much your property is worth.
Matt Fowler. I don't live in town, but I have property in town rentals. And I think the rental ordinance should be revisited. I just had my properties inspected, and I don't know what the new fee is going to be for the new inspector the city hired, but I doubt it's going to be the $25 that we used to pay when Steve Townhall did it. And the inspector came in and inspected basically the same stuff and did the same things Townhall did, and I'm guessing we're going to pay a lot more now. And I guess I don't see where rental properties should have to be inspected to make sure there's hot water, the railings are up, that the refuse ordinance is being followed on rental properties, and we have smoke detectors when the neighbor's property maybe has junk in the yard, a handrail that's not secure, and maybe doesn't have smoke detectors, and their property doesn't get inspected, and they don't have to pay a fee, but yet the landlords and renters, we're obligated to pay a fee and have somebody come inspect our properties. I guess the existing city ordinances that were on the books before, as far as keeping the property looking nice outside and stuff that would maybe affect neighbors and whatnot, adequately, if they were enforced, would adequately control the rental properties. As far as if people's stuff inside isn't clean or whatnot, that's, I guess, up to the landlord and the renter. It doesn't affect the neighbors really. So I guess I'd like to see the rental ordinance revisited.
Thank you.
I have just more of a question.
Yeah.
Do you have any say or control on like what we pay for our water? As far as how we're charged for watering our lawn?
I don't believe.
Commission.
Yeah, Chris Rowley left. You could have spoke to him.
Justin starts giving out Chris's phone number.
All right, so we've got about 5 minutes left. Anyone else want to make any comments? No? All right, well, thank you again for coming tonight. I appreciate your time. And like I said, we'll be hopefully doing this quarterly and possibly different. We don't want to talk about ordinances every time. End up getting boring. But we will take this information back to the other council members, and we do not currently have a special meeting scheduled, but at some point in the near future, we'll discuss these items and see what the entire council would like to do, if anything. So, thank you again.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Drive safe.
What?
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for doing it.
Yes.
You don't have to thank me for doing it. You guys brave doing it.
Yeah, but we should get it out to a wider audience than what's sitting here. I'd wait to say, you probably got some elderly and people that can't get out of their homes and can't get down here.
Yes, that's a very fair. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you guys being willing to do this. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Oh boy. Can you guys hear me? If you're watching, you can still hear me. Yeah, Sarah, what you said. Every law is ultimately enforced at the point of a gun. So the reality of what you just witnessed is that, and I say this not to be cheeky or rude, but most people view their city as their kind of their personal bodyguard. Whatever I want done, I want you to take care of. I want you to enforce it. So if I don't like X, then I should be able to have the city pass an ordinance or enact an ordinance that says you can't do X. And the biggest concern that I have with that is ultimately, how far are you willing to go? And the more involvement that you see with, cities in particular, at the most think local, act local type level, the more involvement you have with city government, the more likely you are to have less, bear with me, sounds weird, but you're less likely to have neighborly interactions. And 100% true. Far less likely to have neighborly interactions when the city is involved with enforcing what it means to be a good neighbor. So if the city's job is to, and I don't know if you guys could hear it, but there are cars going by, loud exhausts, spinning their tires. So my neighbors want my other neighbors to be penalized for that, which maybe they should be. Maybe it's unsafe driving. Maybe they are putting people's lives in danger. But how many cops do you want in town to enforce all of this stuff? It's more and more and more law enforcement. And the more law enforcement involved, the less likely you are to have neighborly behavior. Because now, instead of self-governance, I hate people say police yourself, but now instead of self-governance, you have armed agents of the state stepping in, telling you how to live in a peaceable way with your neighbor. And I just don't think that's appropriate. And it's not in keeping with liberty or freedom. See, everybody says this, that with liberty and freedom comes responsibility. And I think that's true. But what most people actually are saying is that we want you to be responsible to the point of losing your liberty and your freedom. And that's the fact. That's how people think. Even supposed small government conservatives say things like, you have a duty, you have a responsibility, and that might be true. But they want to penalize you and make the responsibility primary instead of the duty to be towards liberty. That's how they think, that's how they act. I'm going to advocate always to err on the side of personal liberty and personal freedom.
And just because you don't like how my yard looks doesn't mean that you should be able to call people with a gun to come take my property from me if I don't do it the way you want. Sarah says, when my kid was in the hospital a lot, we didn't get the lawn mowed a few weeks in a row. Rather than neighbors noticing that, though, we've always been good at that, we suddenly weren't and chatting, and they called the city. Yeah, and we got in trouble. Exactly what I'm getting at, Sarah. Yeah, people always want armed agents of the state to enforce their values on you through the armed agents of the state. And that's a problem. That's a massive problem. And you heard a lot of that tonight. I want the power of government to crack down on X instead of just dealing with it, being good neighbors. And part of thinking locally and acting locally is learning to be a good neighbor. So thanks for tuning in, folks. I hope you guys found this entertaining and useful. I hope it inspires you to go out and get involved and do your thing in your place and where you live, your residence. And we'll be doing this again. So until next time, my friends, think local, act local. Fight for your freedom, it is yours. Fight for your liberty, it belongs to you. And Sic Semper Tyrannis.